guys, I'm Seonkyoung. Today we are making Korean potato dumpling soup. We call Gamja Sujebi. It's super duper yummy. It's perfect for the fall weather, even though Hawaii we don't have a fall weather, but I'm making this recipe for ya. This is actually a great recipe for the rainy days because we get some rainy days up here, and I make this often for the rainy days. I prepared my broth already for my potato dumpling soup. So I just added 5 to 6 dried shiitake mushrooms, some dasima or dried kelp, and then I poured 7 cups of water. You need to soak them at least 30 minutes an hour. Now I came out here to harvest some green onions. So I just peeled the 1.5 pound of Yukon gold potatoes. Let me wash them real fast. Now I'm gonna cut them into little small pieces because we are going to grind them up in a blender. Now we are going to grind them up, and we don't have to add water really. Trust me, potato has a lot of water. It will grind up just fine. Bring a strainer and a little bowl. We're gonna strain this potato in between the potato meat and the water. Let them keep drain. The potato water actually will settle down in between the potato water and the starch. And we're gonna get rid of water and using only the starch, so we need to let them sit about 30 minutes too. I mean, the hardest part of this recipe is almost done because we prepared our broth and we already halfway done with our dough. Super easy, right? All right, now I'm gonna cut up all the vegetables that we need for sujebi, the potato dumpling soup. Some onion. I'm using sweet onion because they are my favorite. You can use whatever onion you have. I think they are a little too long, so I'm gonna cut in half and lengthwise. And some zucchini. More potatoes. Yes, even though we are making potato dumplings, we still would like to have some potatoes in the soup. So it's like extra potato-y. It's like double potato, you know what I mean? My potato lover husband will love this recipe. I mean, he's been loving eating this soup already, but. And I like to cut my potatoes for this soup like a little more thicker side, like this, nice and thick and hearty. And lastly, some of this shiitake mushroom that we used for the broth. So by now, about 30 minutes, they are all kind of softened. Just squeeze all the water out. They might not all the way soften, no worries, because we are gonna cook them in the soup anyways. The reason I did soak them in cold water, so we don't have to like really wait for these mushrooms to cool down to slice it, because trust me, I actually have done different method, like make the broth first and boil it, and like, no, this is a way more efficient way. And then I'm gonna actually remove my dasima, the dried kelp. You can discard this, or you can actually eat this as a salad or add into your dumpling filling or whatever you want to do. This is actually great for your health, so keep it. And I will use this for like different recipes. Go ahead and skim this broth a little bit for, you know, those little small bits that in the broth. Put the shiitake mushrooms back to the broth and the potatoes. You could have boiled the seaweed, but I just decided not to for just more mild flavor. And when you actually soak the seaweed like this long, it actually melts a lot of flavor already to the soup that you don't need to boil. All right, now I'm gonna cover, bring it to boil. Carefully bring our grated potato that is drained right now, kind of smoosh down to drain as much as possible. It's amazing how much water in potato. With that potato was just packed with starch and carbohydrates, not water, but surprisingly, it's a vegetable that has a lot of water. Right now, let's move this drained potatoes into a mixing bowl. And we are still have to let this water sit a little longer to separate the starch and the water. So I'm gonna set aside over here. And then I'm gonna add either half cup of flour or half cup of potato starch. So you can add really either potato starch or flour, it really doesn't matter. Flour actually adds a little more like a cushy kind of the texture, and the potato starch will add a little more chewy texture, so it's completely up to you. If you want, you can even do half and half. Now I actually decided to add a little flour, just only quarter cup. I'm adding flour because of I have to add this wet starch too, that's why I'm like, the dough doesn't have to be like a perfect consistency. So if it's a little wet, you can just scoop it out to add it into the soup. If it's like nice and thick, like a regular sujebi, the Korean dumpling dough, like you can handle with hand, then you can like tear and rip to the soup like a nice and thin bite. So it's completely up to you, to your taste. I really like both either way. So today I'm just gonna add a little more flour. I think I can hold this potato water now. Take all this starch. So by looking at the texture of this starch, it could sit a little longer, but I'm very impatient right now because I haven't eaten anything today and I'm hungry. I'm kind of in a hurry. I completely forgot to season my dumplings. Quarter teaspoon of salt. Almost forgot. It's all good. I can add it now. I remembered before I put it in. So before we add the dumplings, I would like to skim all these foams. Let's add all these onions and zucchini into the broth. The soup looks fantastic already without the dumplings. I cannot wait. There's a two ways to add the dumplings into the broth, which is you can just scoop it out like this and add, or you can use your hand and make it like a thinner like this. If your dough is handle a bowl like mine, so obviously scooping with your spoon will be so much easier. And because of its dumpling, it doesn't have to be like perfect. You know what I mean? It can be ripped. It can be all different shapes and sizes. And make sure your broth is boiling or simmering while you're adding the dumplings. As soon as they go into the soup, they start to cooking so they don't stick to each other. You know what I mean? Ooh, this is gonna be so good! Jacob loves this dish, my potato lover. You can't have enough of this. The soup will naturally thicken because of all the starch from the potato. Oh. But that's the beauty of this soup. It's like nice and hearty, it's so good. It's time to season the soup. So you will need the Korean soup soy sauce, and the rest of the seasoning can be done with salt, because we don't want soup to have like a too dark color. I will start with about half teaspoon of salt. I will taste it. Oh yeah, the seasoning is perfect. Let them keep cooking. Meanwhile, I'm gonna chop up some garlic and green onions.
I keep on forgetting, times learn how to fly, and before I know it, it passes me by.
And Korean potato dumpling soup is done. So add some peppers to your taste. I like to add the pepper on top when I'm serving it. This already warms my soul just looking at it. This is just amazing hearty food. I mean, I would say this is 4 servings, but in our house, this is just 2 servings. You can add black pepper just like this to your taste.
All the leaves, they're turning brown, 'cause it still feels like summer, and I simply don't wanna sit there.
This and little bowl of kimchi. Mm. 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 Mm, 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 mm. Oh man, oh my god, it's so good. When soup is this thick with the starch, it's like never cools down. 맛있어? 맛있지? 맛있지? Ah, hot, 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 hot. Like your wife. Guys, if you liked my potato dumpling recipe, like a Korean style, Korean potato dumpling, Gamja Sujebi recipe, please give this video a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye guys, don't forget to subscribe for more delicious plant-based Asian recipes. Mwah.
walking on town. But I guess I'll just put on my favorite sweater and say goodbye to summer.